First of all, let me really thank you. You represent one of the best universities of the world. We know it, I know it, as an academician. And it's an honor so to be received here on behalf of Portugal and of the Portuguese people. Second, so good to be with students. You are privileged because so many millions of people of your age can't afford to study in university. Do you know it? You know that really you have that opportunity in such a university where Nelson Mandela studied. Just imagine how important it is for your lives. It's a unique opportunity in your lifetime, so live it the way not you entered, but much before. Much better, much better. Because today one must learn throughout one's life, but there is a very important period of your life and our lives that is unforgettable. It is one. The teens, when one is 20, 30, you know. Well, third point, we are here to speak about the Portuguese language and to understand what do you think about it. How is it so important for you to learn Portuguese? So let me say a few words about Portugal. Portugal is a country apparently small. In its size, apparently small is its size. Because you think of the territory that is now the same it was in the beginning. It's the oldest European country with the same territory. There was no Spain, no France, no Italy, no Germany, no Austria, no Nordic countries the way they are. There was Portugal almost 900 years ago. But when we speak of the sea we have under our jurisdiction, it is almost 20 times our well-known physical territory. And it will be in the future 40 times, because our continental platform could be enlarged in a way that we go just to the north of the Atlantic, and we have jurisdiction on seas that are American, Canadian, Iceland. This is another way of seeing Portugal, completely different. And when we speak of our communities abroad, we are 10 million inside our territory. We are around 12 million before, outside our territory. 12 million in every country of the world. Here in South Africa, we have our third largest community in the world. First of all, France, then Brazil, and then South Africa. But then the Portuguese is spoken in the Portuguese-speaking countries. And in every continent, there is one, at least one Portuguese-speaking country. In Asian Pacific, you have Eastern Timor. Then in Africa, you have several. Two of them well-known, and some of the students coming from Mozambique and from Angola. And in America, we have Brazil. So we are everywhere. Portuguese is the second language spoken in the Southern Hemisphere. It's the second language spoken on the digital, after the English, and before the Spanish. On account of the Brazilians. They are crazy about the digital. You know it. And so, this shows how important it is in international institutions and non-governmental organizations to know the Portuguese, to use the Portuguese. And what about Portugal? How is Portugal? In 2 words, old. It was the first absolute monarchy of Europe, the last one at the end of the 20th century to have a democratic evolution. we didn't have liberalism. We didn't have industrial revolution in the 19th century. We were backwards. And then we recovered. And we are recovering. We started in 74 with the revolution, 25th of April. And we shall celebrate it next year, 50 years of revolution. And all of a sudden, we are pioneers on clean energy. When we started, people said, you're crazy, you are small, you're crazy. Now, 60% of our electricity comes from clean energy. No nuclear power, no classic energy. Then, on the digital, you know that Web Summit, the digital summit, is held every year in November in Portugal, coming from United States from Ireland to Portugal. We have a record number of startups. For our population, 10 million people, we're about to have 8 unicorns financed by every important country in the world. United States, China, Singapore, Japan. Startups that turned out to become unicorns. This means that knowledge is spreading in Portugal. Of course, that's the positive side of Portugal. As every country, we have problems, you know it. It's not easy to make this evolution. We had to face 4 challenges at the same time. One is the end of an empire, the last European empire to end. The second, discover democracy. The third, make an economic and social change towards development. The fourth, integrate European Union, at that time European communities. All those challenges faced in less than 20 years. Revolution, 2 years. Decolonization, 2 years. Transition into democracy, 8 years. Economic and social change, well, several years. European integration, 12 years. In 12 years, we did what important European economies had done in 50 years. So, before the end of the century, we had changed in everything that was essential in our economic, social, and political life. Most important of all, democracy. Of course, political democracy is not enough without economic and social and cultural democracy, we know it. But political democracy, when I mention the MPs present here, I'm speaking of a very active democracy. And then our ties with South Africa. President Ramaphosa yesterday told the story about the connection between our revolution and what was happening in South Africa. And you know that this university was so important in the fight for democracy and for freedom and against apartheid. Well, our revolution was in 74. Angola became independent, Mozambique became independent, and the president was celebrating the independence of Mozambique and Angola, and he was arrested. Because this was forbidden in South Africa in 74, 75, 76, 77. One had still to wait for another 15 years till the change, till the end of apartheid. And so many people in Portugal supported this fight. Someone recalled today a meeting of the World Peace Council in Portugal, just before the momentum of the change in South Africa. And the leader was a former president of Portugal after the revolution. And there were present representatives of different parties and trade unions and so on. I was very young, and I was belonging to a center right-wing party. Anyhow, I was there at that meeting, invited by a future president of the Republic, President Sampaio, coming from the left, the socialist left. This shows how your fight was supported by, of course, the Portuguese left, but people from the Portuguese center and the Portuguese right. So, that is Portugal. That is Portugal. And we are discovering that we are facing a new phase in our relations with South Africa. Not just because we have a huge community here, but because it's a community that is evolving, becoming in some cases young, with young people with independent professions, working in companies, in international institutions and so on. But also because we are discovering that the whole geopolitical context is changing, and the Atlantic and the oceans, something that is important for South Africa and for Portugal, make us closer and closer and closer. It's not just the case of having the community here, or just the case of having a neighbor in Mozambique or neighbor Angola. No, it's the fact that we became closer. We fight for multilateralism the same way, for UN role the same way, international organizations the same way, for human rights the same way, for the role of women the same way, against xenophobic and racist visions of the world the same way. So, in so many fields, in spite of being apparently so far away geographically, we are close. We are very, very, very close. You could become another tie, another link between the two countries, the two societies, the two people. Well, I've spoken too much, but you know, for very long, I'm not really having lecturing, so it was an occasion of recalling my experience from, well, when the Prime Minister was a student. Well, he was my student at the age of 19. He was already clever, brilliant, and proactive, very active. He studied very little. He was involved in politics most of the time, but he got 17 out of 20. In Portugal, it's 20, not 100. That's very good for someone that didn't study anything.